Hello, everyone, and welcome to the International Relations Council's second annual Global Horizons Day of Programming. My name is Sadia Akhtar Orna. A lot of you already know me. I'm the Global Education Coordinator of International Relations Council. The International Relations Council strengthens Kansas City's global perspective by maintaining an active dialogue around world events, global issues, and their impact on our community. As a non-partisan, educational nonprofit organization, the IRC values informed civic discourses, accessibility, and substance as we work to sharpen our community's 21st century global acumen. This is the second year of presenting our Global Horizons Day of Programming. Global Horizons explores the full range of IRC programming and the diversity of the wider world. Events are running on Zoom throughout the day, so you can, just come anytime. Actually, this is the third last event of the day. Throughout the day, we had many different events. Like we had a New York Times photographer, we had professor of Korean language for our language series. We had many different things throughout the day, and we have more things. So please join us. We will paste the whole event list in our chat box, so you can have a look at that. For the news and views discussion series, today, right now, we have chosen the topic wildlife conservation. If you don't know what a news and views discussion group is, it's basically, news change from minute to minute nowadays, and sometimes panels and lectures are not enough. So we try to have this small group discussion so that we could dive in to some of the topics in the international news. So now for today's event, our request would be, to have an enjoyable discussion. Please get involved. Please mute yourself in the moments you're not speaking. If you choose to enable your video, which we hope you will do, please make sure you're in a well-lit area free from distractions. You can enable and disable these features in the bottom left corner of your screen. Now, I'm very excited to introduce you to our speaker of today, Sean Putney. I hope I have pronounced that right. The Executive Director and CEO of Kansas City Zoo, which we all love. So I'm very excited to have him with us. Sean Putney took the reins of the Kansas City Zoo as an Executive Director / CEO in January 2022. He brought nearly 29 years of zoo and aquarium experience to the role, including 14 years at the Kansas City Zoo itself. A native of Pennsylvania, I've never been there, hope to go there. Sean got his start at the Catalina Island Marine Institute in California before spending 12 years at Omaha's Henry Dorley Zoo. Sean began his tenure at the Kansas City Zoo in 2007 as an animal curator, working his way up as he took on more responsibilities, overseeing the zoo's animal collection, animal care staff, conservation program, veterinary health department, and facilities. Sean has been instrumental in many of the zoo's significant accomplishments of the last decade, and we're happy to have him here today. Please join me welcoming Sean Putney. Thank you so much, Sean. The whole floor is now yours.
Thank you, Sadia. That was very nice. I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for joining me today. There's very little else that I like to do more than talk about our zoo and conservation. So you've given me the platform that I love to stand upon. Here at the Kansas City Zoo, as I said, I'm very proud to talk about our conservation messages and what we do in that realm. Zoo and aquariums have come a long way in the past 50 years. Most people understand this is a safe place for families to come have fun and visit with their family. But we also want them to leave with a conservation and education message. Most people still consider zoos and aquariums a place where they know that the animals will be well taken care of. But what they don't know is that we're leaders in conservation. Millions of dollars are generated through zoos and aquariums, which support conservational projects around the globe. Even though I could spend hours talking about this subject more in detail, I'll go through a handful of projects that our zoo currently supports, and we'll certainly be able to answer any questions once I get done. So with that, Sadia, am I okay to share my screen? Okay. So this is what most people think of a zoo. I think the majority of the public thinks of it as a place of entertainment, a place where you can go with your family. Some days, especially on warm days, it can be a very popular place. And obviously, we want this to be a place where people do have fun and come for entertainment. But uh, education and conservation, especially over the last 30 years or so, has really become a focus of what we're about. Um, you can see that when you come to the zoo, if you've come to our zoo before, we do focus on having fun, because having fun is the hook. We want people to continue to come to the zoo, come back to the zoo, tell their friends that this is a great place to visit. But we also, once they're here, we want to try to tell them as many stories that we can about what zoos do and about the animals, but also about conservation. And we consider our animals ambassadors to their species in the wild. Um, so moving on to the next slide, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but this is something that, again, I'm very proud of what we've done over the past 10 years. Right now, we currently spend around $300,000 a year for conservation efforts, and this might be close to home in the state of Missouri. It might be nationwide. We have a few projects that are in the United States or globally. And conservation to us not only includes projects for the animals, but also for the environment. And we also preach sustainability too. So some of our programs might be right here on the zoo grounds, where we're trying to decrease our carbon footprint, or have an easier way to bring in sustainable sources of energy. Again, another slide that I love to show off because of our impact around the globe. We actually have this in a much bigger form. It's about 6 feet tall by 10 feet wide on our zoo grounds. And we hope to hit people on the main thoroughfare as they're walking through the zoo. And sometimes people don't stop to read every sign, but we hope that most people will at least glance over and see what the zoo is doing, again, locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. One of the programs, the following slides are all programs that we participate in, not only monetarily, but with boots on the ground. We do have several projects that we just support monetarily. Overall, we have right around 21 or 22 projects that are ongoing right now, but about half of those are projects where we're actually sending people to help out with. And this is one of them. The Black Mambas are an all-female group that are located in South Africa that are trying to do away with poaching and protecting the animals. It's unbelievable what these women do. They are often marching 15 to 20 miles a day around their territories. They can be out for 3 weeks at a time. They're taking down, as you can see from the picture in the center, trying to remove dangerous snares, which oftentimes there are a lot of bycatch from these snares that are put out for animals that they intend to eat, but end up catching other animals. And also just their presence hopefully deters poachers from going out and collecting game. This group also teaches young folks in the villages about why conservation and animals are important. And to me, both of these things are at the core of being successful with conservation programs. If you don't have the support of the community, a conservation program will fail. It's plain and simple. You can have the best efforts that you possibly think you can put in place for the animals and the environment, but if the local community doesn't support it, it won't work. So just a few other things. I thought it was interesting to put these two pictures on the bottom of the screen, and you can see that these women are sharing pathways with some of the most dangerous animals in Africa. So one of the rangers is on the right, and at a different time during that day, if I remember the story correctly, that's about 2 hours later, there was a lion on the same road. So they are putting themselves in the path of danger, not only with animals, but obviously some of these poachers out there have weapons as well. So very, very important, but also very dangerous work. We have another program in Africa in the lower Zambezi River. And again, we're also supporting anti-poaching units here, but our big support in this is with cameras. We're sending cameras that they use for camera traps, and some of those traps will catch poachers at doing their thing. But the other portion of this is also seeing what animals are utilizing that space. And all of the pictures of the elephants and the gazelles are from those camera traps. One of our employees, Katie Munninger, is on the lower central picture and the picture off to the right. And something else that they're doing is trying to save the pangolin. Believe it or not, that armored creature on the left is something that is quickly diminishing in the fields of Africa. Some of these animals are being caught up and used for medicinal purposes in Asia. So there are really two aspects of this, and we're hoping that educational efforts in Asian countries that are teaching people that rhino horn doesn't have any medicinal effects. Same with these pangolin scales. It's a matter of education, but it goes against a lot of folklore that's out there, sometimes thousands of years. This folklore, it has existed in these communities, and it's really hard to combat that with science if people don't believe in it. But it can be done, and it has been proven successful. It is making sure that you're continuing to teach that message and trying to recruit people who will listen to the science. Another area of the world, up in Canada, we send folks up to basically look at polar bears. We're in a group with Polar Bear International, who's one of the biggest conservation groups towards polar bear conservation in the world. Again, we have boots on the ground there. We send our staff up there. I think we've sent 4 people up there now over the past 10 years. And they get to have the experience on the tundra buggies, get out there and see the bears before the water freezes over in the Hudson Bay and they go out on the ice. They all gather in this one area, and our folks have been able to see them, and they bring that experience back to the zoo. That's part of the neat thing about sending folks out to do projects abroad, is they bring that story back with them and can talk about what they've seen, and hopefully they're able to spread that message. And in the case of Polar Bear International, the animal keepers that go up there are expected to come back to the zoo and formulate a plan where they can help out with polar bear conservation locally. And it doesn't have to be directly affecting the polar bears. Most of it here in Kansas City is obviously indirect. And for example, the girl up in the left-hand corner there, Andrea Daniels, was our supervisor of what we call our Water's Edge team that takes care of polar bears here in Kansas City. And she came back and had the idea to talk about energy conservation. And she bought a lot of light switches. And during our Party for the Planet days here at the zoo, she had kids decorate these light switches and hopefully would take them home, put them up on their walls and cover their light switches. And when those rooms weren't in use, they would turn off the light because they had that polar bear design on it to remind them about conservation. Now that's a really little thing, but hopefully little things add up to big things as far as carbon emissions go, and hopefully we're making a small difference here. We've had another staff member plant trees. The person in the bottom right-hand corner designed some no idling signs, Georgia Eckett, that she not only put up here around the zoo, but at some participating schools around the Kansas City area as well. So again, small things, but we hope that those small things add up and that people remember that as they grow up. Another really cool plan that Stacia Peroni, who's our conservation manager, put into play about 5 years ago. We were one of the original groups of zoos that joined on with Borneo reforestation. And you can see the pictures from 2018 to 2021, the difference that it can make in a fairly short period of time. For those of you who live here in the United States, when we plant a tree, if you have it grow a foot or two in a year, you're lucky. But when you're in the rainforest area, these trees are growing fairly rapidly. Now, will the trees that you see on that picture on the right support an orangutan after 3 years of growth? No, but it does grow relatively quickly. And this is our way of helping out a problem that is occurring around the world with deforestation. So what's happened with the orangutans, which is our primary focus here, is that they have their land segmented. And so you have groups of animals that it becomes difficult for them to move back and forth between the forests that they would normally call home. These are arboreal animals. And even though you see that camera trap picture at the bottom of the page that shows the big adult male traveling on the ground, orangutans are the largest arboreal animals in the world and depend on trees, and usually are traveling, their method of traveling is through the trees as well. Their hands and feet look pretty close to the same, and they're excellent climbers and swingers through the trees. So Stacia had set it up that we were going there about every year. COVID delayed that a little bit, but we're planning on sending somebody back out again next year to help with this reforestation plan. And this has become so successful now that other zoos around the country are joining in, and the orangutan species survival plan has endorsed it. It's part of the safe species program, conservation program. So you're getting more and more interest in this, and hopefully as we continue to gather more groups, that means more money, which means we can get more trees and reforest more areas. And again, you can see some of the camera traps that we used in the area too. So you see an elephant moving away and that orangutan moving past, to just show you some of the animals that are found in these forests that we're trying to connect. Here's one that's close to home. So I told you that we have not only support for these worldwide programs, but this one in particular is right here in Missouri. Dr. Brian Stockinger, who has the smile, and he's holding the skunk in the bottom portion of the picture there. He has worked with the Missouri Department of Conservation and the University of Missouri. He went to them and said, what animals in Missouri might need our help? And there was a researcher at the University of Missouri that said, I'm working on a spotted skunk project right now. I could use some help. And so they're going out and setting up camera traps to find where spotted skunks are moving through in the southern portion of the state, as well as setting up live traps so that they can catch some of these animals and get blood from them, do body measurements. The spotted skunk used to be throughout the state, and there was a large population into the 1950s, but they were overhunted, overtrapped for their fur. And unfortunately, they haven't been able to rebound, despite the fact that it's illegal to collect them now. So the question now is, why haven't they been able to bounce back when it's no longer legal to collect them? So a lot of the work that they're doing right now is trying to find out the why. why aren't they able to rebound? And we'll see if we can make a difference right here at home. The next two slides that I'm going to talk about are particularly close to my heart. You'll see on the left there, that's a picture of me sitting on top of a rock down off the coast of Peru. And it's right next to a city by the name of Marcona. And we are a part of the Humboldt Penguin Consortium. This is the largest breeding group of penguins in the country of Peru, and the second largest one in the world. Humboldt penguins, the reason why we joined the Humboldt Penguin Consortium is back in 2013, we decided to build a penguin building here at the zoo. And what better way to open up a building than to talk about conservation that we're a part of for an animal that we have in this brand new building. And the way that this area came about, it's a little hard to tell from the picture that I have in the bottom left-hand corner, but back in the 1940s, this area was walled off to protect not the animals that live on this peninsula, but to protect their guano that they've produced. So it's very high in nitrogen and great to put on farm fields. So they're basically protecting a product that they could earn money from. But when they put this wall up, it actually created a reserve for the animals that live there, because you couldn't have, hunters could no longer get on that land. Some of the animals that might eat the penguins or other birds that are located there. I failed to mention that besides the penguins, this area is visited by hundreds of thousands of seagoing birds every year, and they nest there. So that's why the buildup of the guano started. So anyway, by building the wall, it created this habitat that was ideal for all these seafaring animals. What the Humboldt Penguin Consortium does is pays for two scientists to live on the land there, and they're keeping a constant lookout not only for the animals and doing research on the animals that are found there, but also making sure that there aren't people that are disobeying the laws and coming out there and trying to harvest animals that are there. So we've been doing this for almost 10 years now. We've participated in penguin census as well. The picture at the very top left is one of our staff members who was down with me. We were out on boats, we were out on rocks and counting as many penguins as we could up and down the coast of Peru, trying to see how many animals were there. This is something that they do every 5 years. So we're very proud of what we do down there, and love the fact that we have a partnership. In fact, we like it so much that we're also supporting an educational effort in the city of Marcona as well. You have to realize that this community that surrounds where these penguins live is very poor. They're a fishing area and a mining area, and most of the people there are not rich. So they can't go out and eat a penguin or overfish an area, be responsible towards the environment. It's a hard message unless you start at a young age. So we're hoping that the efforts that we're supporting will make a difference over time. And then the last big program that I was going to talk about today, again, is one that's near and dear to my heart. The bottom right-hand picture is me many pounds ago. But this is something that we've been involved with since 2007. The Wyoming toad is an animal that used to be the most abundant vertebrate in the Laramie Valley up in Wyoming. And in the 1970s, probably multiple causes, but certainly chytrid virus and the use of fenthion, the pesticide, had to play in their demise. By the 1980s, there were so few of them left that U.S. Fish and Wildlife decided to gather up, and how many they gathered up is a little bit of discrepancies. It's somewhere between 10 and 20 animals that were gathered up, brought into human care, and then by trial and error, trying to breed them has been successful. In fact, it was so successful that we now have a population in zoos and aquariums and at U.S. Fish and Wildlife areas that is right around 500 to 600 animals, depending on the year. And our sole purpose is really to act as an ark. And we breed the animals, and every year we send out usually tens of thousands of tadpoles, toadlets, and adult toads back out into the native habitat where the Wyoming toad would normally be found. When I first started in 2007, we only had 2 lakes that we returned them to, and now we're up to 5 areas that they're being released. Unfortunately, the toads haven't increased their population. They're still considered extinct in the wild by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Even though you could go up there and technically find one, it's not a sustainable population yet. That is our goal. The goal is always to try to get a sustainable population so that we don't have to do this, and we can move on to the next group of animals that we'd like to help, but we're certainly not there yet. And even in Wyoming, I know I talked about this before on a couple of slides about the support of the community is important. And sometimes you think, well, he's talking about a place in Borneo or a place in Africa, but that's also holds true here in the United States. The folks in Wyoming were very cautious about the toad and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, because that's their land, and they're worried about government intrusion on their land. And what if I find one of these endangered species on my land? Is the government going to take it? So it took quite some time for us to get it to the point where the landowners understood that nobody was trying to take their land, and it's more of a cooperative. And when we first went out to Wyoming, at least when I first went out to Wyoming in 2007, I was told, don't say that you're here for the toad. That's how much the community didn't like what was going on out there. And now it's totally turned around. They have places in Laramie that are selling postcards with Wyoming toads on it, and there's Wyoming toad beer and Wyoming toad wine. So now it's a part of the community. And when you have that, when you have people that feel like that's a part of their history and their town, then you have something that can work. So we've come a long way. I'd also like to take a moment to talk about conservation at the zoo. We have all sorts of SSPs, which are species survival plans, that we're a part of, and some of these are just to ensure that we have a sustainable population at zoos and aquariums. But some of our programs are actually contributing to the wild as well. The top left-hand corner, you can see some trumpeter swans that were hatched here at the zoo and released up in Iowa. This program's become so successful over time that Iowa isn't releasing birds back into the wild now. So now we're looking for another state who is interested in partnering with us and other zoos to get this beautiful, magnificent animal back into some of its home ranges. The central picture there is Tracy Divis, one of our more experienced animal folks, and he's got a handful of mussels. I know it's hard to see what he has. It looks like rocks, but freshwater mussels, even though they're not cute and fuzzy, they play an important role in the environment and had been pretty much wiped out. There are many species of freshwater mussels that are either extinct or on the endangered species list, and we're trying to help out with redistributing them. Our role, we play we play a part in the reintroduction. So the folks down at Missouri State University will get them so that they're breeding and get the offspring, and they bring them up to us. We put them in containers, put them out in our lakes, and make sure they're aerated and let them feed away. And then once they get to the size that's in Tracy's hands, then we send them back out to the designated release sites. And that's been very successful. We've sent them out to rivers and streams throughout Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. So we're continuing that program. Bottom left-hand corner, I won't take a lot of time on this one because that's just showing you where our Wyoming toads live while they're here. And then another species, the golden frog, up in the right-hand corner, that's one of our staff members who is, that was early on in the project. He was designing the project, the breeding areas where the frogs would breed. And those golden frogs are found in Central America, but they were wiped out by the chytrid fungus as well. You could look at, if you went online, you can see the chytrid fungus's tracks as it went across Central America and wiped out amphibian species after amphibian species. Extremely sad. So some of those were brought into human care, again, acting as an ark. And that's it. So this is a time I do have my information up here. If you're interested in contacting me, there it is. You can certainly email me afterwards if you have a question that you'd like to ask. And now I'd like to open up the floor to anybody who might have a question.